What happens when royal grace meets morning show patience, and both run out at the same time? Viewers tuned into Good Morning America expecting sunshine, recipes, and small talk. What they got instead was a royal storm. In just under 10 minutes, one guest would test every boundary of live television, until even the unflappable Sam Champion was forced to do something he'd never done before: end an interview mid-air. The morning began like any other in Times Square. The Good Morning America studio glowed with its usual golden warmth, bustling with producers, camera operators, and stage managers who knew every second counted. Sam Champion, polished as always, reviewed his cue cards and weather graphics, his calm demeanor anchoring the chaos around him. "Big day," one assistant whispered. "She's in hair and makeup." "She?" Sam asked, glancing up with his trademark half-smile. "Meghan Markle." Sam nodded slowly. He'd interviewed presidents, activists, actors, even royalty, but few names carried as much tension as hers. Still, professionalism was his second language. He straightened his jacket, checked his mic, and said, "Let's make it a good one." At 8:13 a.m., the studio doors opened. Meghan Markle entered surrounded by publicists and a quiet storm of whispered instructions. She wore a cream-colored designer suit, tailored within an inch of perfection. Every camera light seemed to find her, and she didn't mind. Her expression was composed but distant, as though she were arriving at a palace press conference, not a friendly morning chat. "Good morning, Meghan," Sam greeted warmly, extending his hand. "Welcome to Good Morning America. We're thrilled you could join us." Meghan's handshake was brief, her eye contact minimal. "Yes, well," she said, scanning the set. "Let's make this quick. I have other commitments today." A few nearby producers exchanged glances. Sam didn't flinch. "Of course," he replied. "We'll keep it efficient." They sat across from each other, two professionals from utterly different worlds, beneath the soft studio lights. The cameras rolled. The red tally light came on. "Good morning, everyone," Sam began, his voice carrying that familiar warmth America had trusted for decades. "Joining us today is Meghan Markle, actress, humanitarian, and former senior royal, here to talk about her latest initiative supporting women in leadership." "Thank you for having me," Meghan said, crossing her legs gracefully. "It's important that people with platforms use them for real impact, not just fluff." Sam smiled politely. "Well said. Let's start there. You've been involved in several charitable programs over the years. What inspired your current project?" Meghan tilted her head. "What inspired me? Honestly, disappointment. I look around and see people, especially people in the media, talking endlessly, but doing very little. It's tiring." Sam gave a small nod. "I see. You feel that media could be doing more?" "I know it could be doing more," she said sharply. "You spend hours discussing celebrity wardrobes, baking recipes, trivial stories that add nothing to the world. Why not focus on something that matters?" The studio air shifted. The crew went silent, except for the hum of cameras. "Well," Sam began carefully, "our goal is to balance information and inspiration. We try to highlight good news while keeping our audience informed." "Good news?" Meghan repeated with a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "That's such a convenient phrase for staying comfortable." Sam's smile thinned, but he stayed calm. Comfort can be valuable too. People face a lot of stress every day. Sometimes what they need in the morning is a little light, a reminder that the world isn't all bad. "Or maybe they need a wake-up call," Meghan said. "You call it comfort, I call it distraction." He glanced at her, reading the tone. She wasn't here to promote, she was here to provoke, and she was good at it. "I think there's room for both," he said gently. "Awareness and optimism don't have to be opposites." "That's the kind of middle ground answer people give when they're afraid to take a stand," Meghan said coolly, adjusting her sleeve. The words hung in the air like frost. Sam felt them land, but didn't break stride. "I don't see it as fear," he said. "I see it as balance. That's part of what journalism is, bringing people together, not dividing them." Meghan arched a brow. Balance can be an excuse for inaction. That one hit harder. Even the teleprompter operator froze. Sam inhaled slowly, choosing each word. "Or it can be a way to ensure that we hear every side of the story before rushing to judgment." "Right," Meghan said, voice dripping with irony. Because rushing to judgment would be terrible. Heaven forbid we hold anyone accountable. The sarcasm sliced through the calm studio air. Sam folded his hands in front of him, steady as stone. I'm all for accountability, Meghan. I just believe it works best when paired with respect. Respect, she echoed, leaning back. That's a word people in your position like to use when they don't want to be challenged. The crew's eyes darted between them. What was supposed to be a 7-minute segment was already veering off script, and Meghan's tone had gone from assertive to adversarial. Sam adjusted his papers slightly, signaling the control booth not to cut yet. He wanted to handle this himself. Challenge is welcome here, he said, looking directly at her. That's how conversations move forward, but there's a line between challenge and contempt. Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. And who decides where that line is? You? I think mutual respect does, Sam replied simply. For a heartbeat, nobody spoke. The audience behind the cameras could sense something shifting. Meghan's composure was still intact, but her eyes had hardened. You're very practiced at sounding calm, she said finally. I wonder if you ever lose that cool. Or, is that part of the brand? Sam smiled faintly. Experience teaches you composure, especially in live television. Experience, Meghan repeated, almost mockingly. Yes, I suppose that's another word for being stuck in your ways. Sam blinked once. The lights reflected in his calm blue eyes. Well, he said evenly, if being professional counts as being stuck, then I'll take it. It was the kind of line that usually diffused tension, but not this time. Meghan's expression sharpened. Maybe professionalism isn't what the world needs right now, she said quietly. Maybe it needs honesty, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Maybe, Sam said, his tone firm but kind. But honesty without kindness is just aggression dressed up as virtue. The words hit like a gentle thunderclap. For a moment, Meghan had no retort. The silence was louder than anything that had been said so far. The silence that followed Sam's words wasn't ordinary silence. It was charged, the kind that made even the studio lights seem to dim. Crew members exchanged glances, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the two continue. But Sam, ever the calm captain, gave a subtle nod toward the director's booth. Keep rolling. He leaned forward slightly, his tone still warm but steadier now. Meghan, you've spoken a lot about accountability. Let me ask, what does accountability look like to you? Meghan crossed her legs again, her posture sharp, her tone clipped. It looks like people in positions of influence acknowledging when they've been part of the problem. That's fair, Sam said evenly. Do you feel the media hasn't done that? I think the media loves to pretend it's self-aware, Meghan replied, her words crisp, deliberate. You'll have a panel about privilege or a segment about inclusion, but when the cameras stop, it's back to the same small circle deciding what matters. I mean, look around, she gestured toward the set. How diverse are the voices that actually shape this show? The question hit the air like a match landing in dry grass. A few heads turned behind the cameras. Sam inhaled quietly, his expression unreadable. I can't speak for every network, he said, but I can tell you this team is built on collaboration and respect. We come from many backgrounds, and that's something we take pride in. Respect, Meghan said again, her voice rising slightly. That word keeps coming up. But you can't have respect without equality. And from where I'm sitting, I don't see much of that in how I've been treated by the press, or even by shows like this. Sam kept his gaze, steady. You're treated here the same way every guest is treated, with professionalism. Meghan gave a small, humorless laugh. Professionalism, right? You mean the subtle condescension, the scripted questions, the pre-approved talking points? The expectation that I'll smile and say what people want to hear. That's not how I operate, Sam replied, his voice even but firm. You're free to speak your truth, Meghan. Always have been. But when I do, I'm labeled difficult, she fired back. Every time a woman challenges authority, suddenly she's the problem. Sam's jaw tightened slightly, the first visible crack in his composure. I don't think anyone here called you difficult. Not out loud, Meghan said sharply. But I can feel it, the tension, the looks. You can't tell me you haven't been warned about me, about how to handle me. The room went dead quiet again. The control booth froze. No one wanted to breathe too loudly. Sam exhaled softly, choosing his words with surgical precision. We prepare for every guest. That's not about handling anyone. It's about respect for their time and their message. Meghan's smile was tight, rehearsed. Respect. There it is again. You seem to like that word, Sam. I like what it stands for, he said calmly. And I like honesty, she said, leaning forward. So let's be honest. People like you get to sit in these chairs because you're safe. You don't make anyone uncomfortable. You play the game. Sam's fingers tapped once against his note cards. That's your opinion. It's a fact, Meghan said coolly. You're the type of person networks love. Polished, non-threatening, predictable. Sam blinked, and when he spoke again, there was a controlled weight behind his words. You know, Meghan, I've been doing this a long time, and I've learned that staying composed under pressure doesn't make you predictable. It makes you professional. Meghan tilted her head. Or robotic. A low murmur rippled through the crew. Even the teleprompter operator stopped scrolling. Sam gave a small, measured smile. I'd call it disciplined. Disciplined, Meghan repeated, almost scoffing. That's such a convenient word for suppressing real emotion. Or maybe it's the reason I've been trusted to be on live television for 25 years without a meltdown, Sam replied, his tone sharp but still polite. That line hit. Meghan's eyes flickered for just a moment. Her posture stiffened. Oh, I see, she said, her voice carrying a colder edge now. A little jab about self-control? Classy. Not a jab, Sam said smoothly. Just an observation. Right, she said, folding her arms. Because it's not like you've ever lost your temper. Must be easy when you've never had your character attacked. I've had plenty of criticism, Sam said. But I try not to confuse disagreement with disrespect. Maybe that's easy for you, she said. You've never had to fight to be heard. You don't know what that feels like. Sam looked at her, the faintest sigh escaping his chest. You might be surprised by what I've had to fight for, Meghan. Everyone has their battles. Her eyes narrowed. That's such a generic response. I expected more depth from someone with decades of experience. That last word, decades, came out like a blade. The crew collectively tensed. One producer whispered, "Oh no." Sam sat back slightly, his hands folded neatly in his lap. His expression remained calm, but there was steel in his voice when he answered. You know, Meghan, experience isn't something to mock. It's something to learn from. Unless it's outdated, she countered instantly. He nodded slowly. Maybe. But some things never go out of style, like basic courtesy. Her expression faltered for the briefest second, then hardened again. Are you implying I've been discourteous? I'm saying the tone of this conversation feels less like a discussion, Sam replied, and more like a confrontation. Oh, don't start with that, Meghan said, waving her hand dismissively. Whenever a woman is assertive, it's called a confrontation. If I were a man, you'd call me confident. Sam leaned forward, his voice steady. Confidence isn't the issue. Dismissiveness is. Dismissiveness? She repeated, incredulous. I'm speaking my truth. Maybe you're just uncomfortable hearing it. I'm not uncomfortable with truth, Sam said, his eyes locked on hers. But there's a difference between speaking truth and weaponizing it. For the first time, Meghan seemed caught off guard. Her gaze shifted briefly toward the cameras, then back to Sam. So now I'm weaponizing honesty? That's a new one. Sam's tone didn't waver. You're welcome to be as honest as you like. Just remember, civility and truth aren't enemies. That was it, the turning point. Meghan's lips tightened, her voice cooling into something precise, sharp, and unmistakably personal. Maybe civility is just the shield people use when they can't handle accountability, she said. Sam gave the smallest smile, calm, but with a flicker of exhaustion behind it. And maybe accountability begins with how we treat others when we walk into a room. The air went thick. Nobody moved. The control booth's countdown timer blinked red, wore 30 seconds to break. And yet, nobody dared to cut to commercial. The red light above the camera blinked back on. We're live, a stagehand whispered, as if anyone had forgotten. When Good Morning America returned from the break, Sam Champion's voice carried its usual steadiness. But just beneath it, there was a tremor. a quiet tension that even viewers at home could sense. "Welcome back," he began. "We're continuing our conversation with Meghan Markle, discussing leadership, media responsibility, and the role of influence in shaping today's culture." He turned toward her with a warm but deliberate nod. "Before the break, you mentioned accountability. You've been outspoken about how institutions should change. What does that look like for you personally?" It was a fair question, neutral, professional, but Meghan didn't take it that way. She leaned forward, her expression cool. "You see, Sam, that's the problem right there. This idea that every question about change has to circle back to the individual. It's not about me. It's about systems that perpetuate inequality." Sam nodded. "Understood. But you're also part of those systems now, aren't you? You've worked with global organizations, the entertainment industry, the royal family. Surely that gives you influence to help change them." The words were calm, but the implication hit. Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you suggesting I'm part of the problem?" "Not at all," Sam said. "I'm suggesting that leadership means engaging with both sides, power and responsibility." Meghan gave a sharp laugh. "That's such a diplomatic answer. You should run for office." The audience chuckled awkwardly. Sam smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't waver. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It wasn't one," she said, crossing her arms. For a brief second, the energy on set shifted again. You could feel the tension ripple outward, through the audience, through the crew, through the glass walls of the Times Square studio. Sam pressed on, voice calm, but more direct now. "Meghan, this is a platform where guests are free to speak their mind. But I think our viewers also appreciate when we balance criticism with solutions. What do you propose as the next step forward?" "Maybe people in positions like yours should stop pretending they're neutral," Meghan said. Sam blinked once. "Neutral? Yes," she said. "The media hides behind neutrality to avoid accountability. You sit there smiling, asking safe questions, avoiding any real stance, and you call that journalism. It's cowardice, Sam." That word, cowardice, hung in the air like smoke. You could feel the collective breath leave the studio. Sam's voice lowered, calm, controlled, dangerous in its stillness. "I've covered hurricanes, humanitarian crises, protests, situations far from safe, Meghan. What I don't do is turn interviews into battlegrounds." Meghan's mouth curled into a faint smirk. "Oh, please, you talk about weather, not war." It was a jab, sharp, public, and deeply personal. Sam's fingers tightened slightly around his note cards. "Weather," he said quietly, "is what connects all of us. It's what determines livelihoods, safety, even survival. It's not as trivial as you think." She shrugged. "Maybe not, but it's hardly revolutionary, is it?" That landed harder than she realized. The control room was whispering now. Cut to B-roll. "No, he's got it." Sam's expression didn't change, but the air around him seemed to shift. "Meghan," he said evenly, "I've been on television for over 25 years. I've had the privilege of meeting people from every background imaginable. Farmers, first responders, scientists, survivors. They've taught me that the smallest acts of consistency matter more than grand gestures." She raised a brow. "Consistency sounds a lot like complacency." He looked at her directly now. "And anger sounds a lot like deflection." That one landed. The silence afterward was total. Even the floor manager froze, unsure whether to intervene. Meghan blinked, her face stiffening into a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Wow," she said softly, almost laughing. "So now I'm angry and deflecting. How very predictable." "I didn't say you were angry," Sam replied quietly. "I said the tone of this conversation feels more like performance than dialogue." Meghan leaned back, crossing her arms again. "Performance? You'd know all about that, wouldn't you?" "Excuse me?" Sam asked, surprised. She tilted her head. "You've spent your entire career performing calmness, performing empathy. You've built a brand around being likable, but that's not the same as being genuine." Sam's eyes lifted slowly from his notes. "I think we're drifting away from the topic." "Oh, I think we're finally getting to it," Meghan said, her voice low but sharp. "Because the truth is, people like you control the narrative. You decide which parts of someone's story are worth telling, and if I don't play nice, if I don't fit your version of me, you turn on me." That's not what's happening here, Sam said carefully. Isn't it? She challenged. You've been condescending since I sat down, smiling that fake smile while you try to box me in with your balanced questions. My smile isn't fake, he said softly. It's called composure. Oh, right, she snapped. Composure, another word for emotional detachment. Sam exhaled through his nose. I think we're going in circles. You mean you've run out of rehearsed lines, she countered. That was the moment the studio air went from warm to glacial. Sam didn't move for several seconds. Then, slowly, he set his note cards down. Meghan, I invited you here to talk about your initiatives and your advocacy, not to engage in personal attacks. I'm not attacking you, she said flatly. I'm holding a mirror up. Maybe you just don't like what you see. Sam gave a small nod, his voice calm but edged. I see someone who came here to make headlines, not to have a conversation. Meghan's expression hardened. How dare you? I dare because I respect this platform and everyone who works on it, he said, and I won't let it become a stage for hostility. Her laugh was short, sharp, humorless. Hostility? You've had your producers whispering in your earpiece this whole time, probably telling you to keep me under control. That's not how we work, Sam said. Of course not, she said, dripping sarcasm. Because you're the perfect gentleman, right? The calm, collected American hero who never loses his cool. He met her gaze head on. Calm doesn't mean passive, and respect doesn't mean silence. She blinked. For the first time, her expression faltered, but only for a moment. You know what? She said, standing abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be patronized by a man who thinks reading the weather makes him a philosopher. Then maybe you shouldn't, Sam replied quietly. The studio gasped. Meghan froze. Excuse me? Sam stayed seated, composed, almost serene. If you believe this platform doesn't serve your message, you're free to walk away. But I won't let this conversation turn into an argument for the sake of ratings. Meghan's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected him to call her bluff. Oh, trust me, she said coldly. If I walk off, the ratings will skyrocket. Sam nodded once. Then maybe you'll do us both a favor. And with that, everything changed. The cameras kept rolling. The audience gasped again. And the woman who had once commanded red carpets stood frozen in the middle of Good Morning America, realizing the calmest man in television had just drawn the line. For a full 5 seconds, the studio stood frozen. Cameras humming, lights glaring, audience breath held tight. Meghan Markle was on her feet, standing before one of the most respected morning hosts in America. Her eyes were sharp, her tone cold. You just told me to leave your show? Sam didn't blink. I said you're free to, yes. You have a choice, to continue a respectful conversation or not. That's unbelievable, she snapped. I came here to talk about meaningful issues, and you've turned it into some kind of character test. Sam stayed seated, voice calm as steady rainfall. You came here to be heard, Meghan, and I wanted that. But being heard isn't the same as dominating the room. You're twisting this, she said, her voice rising. You're doing exactly what the British press did, trying to make me look emotional, unstable. No, Sam said firmly. I'm trying to keep this conversation civil. Meghan folded her arms. Civil, there's that word again. You men love using it when a woman dares to push back. Civility isn't gendered, Sam replied, tone flat. It's universal. That line landed like a gavel. The control room whispered through headsets. Don't cut. Don't you dare cut. Meghan exhaled, visibly frustrated. You're just proving my point, Sam. You smile, you keep your composure, and you think that makes you morally superior. It's performative. It's fake. He tilted his head slightly. And shouting on national television isn't? The audience audibly gasped. That was the moment everyone realized. The calm anchor had drawn his line. Meghan blinked, caught off guard for half a second before regaining her sharp tone. You think this makes you look good, she said, cutting off a woman who's actually trying to say something real? No, Sam said softly. Standing up for my team does. What are you talking about? You walked into this studio, Sam said, rising from his chair now. And within 5 minutes, you dismissed the work of my producers, my crew, this network, and me. You called what we do fluff, You mocked the very idea that positivity could be meaningful, and you've done it all while demanding respect you haven't shown anyone here." Meghan's expression faltered. "I didn't." "You did," Sam said, not unkindly. "And you're still doing it." The silence that followed was devastating. The audience, the crew, everyone could feel the shift. Sam wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. He was simply done. "You know what?" Meghan finally said, voice trembling with restrained rage. "If this is how you treat guests who challenge you, maybe I will leave." "That's entirely your decision," Sam replied. And then, with deliberate precision, Meghan unhooked her microphone pack. The small click of the latch echoed through the studio. She placed the mic on the chair beside her and looked directly at Sam. "You'll regret this," she said. "You really will." Sam's expression didn't change. "I doubt that." Meghan straightened her blazer, flicked her hair over her shoulder, and began walking toward the edge of the set. The camera operators didn't know whether to follow her or not. So one of them did. The shot went wide, a royal storming off in full view of America. Sam remained standing, hands clasped calmly in front of him. He didn't speak until the heavy studio doors closed behind her with a muffled thud. Then he turned toward the camera, exhaled once, and said, "Well, that was unexpected. We'll take a short break." The control room cut to black. When the broadcast returned minutes later, Sam was alone on set. His voice was steady again, like the morning after a storm. "Welcome back to Good Morning America," he said with that familiar warmth. "We want to thank all of you for joining us this morning. Coming up next, stories of kindness and resilience from across the country. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do is remember how to talk to each other, with respect." He smiled, a real one this time, and the audience, both in the studio and at home, felt it. By noon, the clip was everywhere. Meghan Markle storms. Off GMA, Sam Champion draws the line. Millions of views, millions of opinions. Inside the network offices, phones buzzed non-stop. Executives met behind glass walls. Publicists called demanding retractions, clarifications, statements. But Sam? He just went back to work. When a producer asked if he wanted to address the incident the next day, he simply said, "No need. The footage speaks for itself." It did. Across social media, people replayed the moment, the poised anchor versus the furious guest. Most agreed he had handled himself with dignity, and as one viral tweet put it, Sam Champion didn't lose his cool. He just reminded everyone what professionalism looks like. If you believe respect still matters, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more real talk stories that reveal the truth behind television's most shocking moments. Tell us in the comments, do you think Sam was right to end the interview, or should he have let Meghan continue? Because sometimes one moment on live TV can say more than 1,000 headlines ever could.